I'm Mantis. I head up the content marketing team here at Socialbakers. And we also have Monica on a panel.
Hey everyone, so glad to join you. Hey Mantis, hey Robert. I head up the product marketing team here at Socialbakers, and spent a lot of time working closely actually with both Mantis and Robert. So it's really nice to be together to chat through what we're feeling and chat with you guys on the call as well.
And we also have Robert joining us from the product team. Robert, do you want to introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes, thank you, Mantas. Hi, Monica. Hello, everyone from Pakistan to US. I'm impressed. I think the whole world is on this call. So my role is product manager in Socialbakers. For those who don't know what the product manager stands for, my role and responsibility in this company is to make sure that we identify and we deliver the solutions that deliver on business objectives of our clients and are also easy to use. And my domain expertise, or why Socialbakers hired me, is to develop and bring the social listening tool.
And we brought you here on the webinar for that too. So I'm really glad to be joined by the expert of the experts.
Yeah, so before we dive into the topic, again, just a little bit of a housekeeping change when you're responding so that you're responding to all panelists and attendees. Actually, I'm going to do that myself because I haven't done it the first time. And let's go through the agenda briefly, Monica, if you can walk us through it.
Yes, I'm sure this is a topic on everybody's mind right now. So I'm glad that we're having it right at the precipice of 2021. We're almost there, guys. So let's really consider today how we can face the new year by having the biggest trends at our backs. I think it's important to understand what's really happening with consumer behaviors that we can start making a plan for 2021 if we haven't already started already. But these are some cool things that are happening, interesting, weird things that are happening that we have to know. And of course, we want to dive into a little bit more of an actionable approach to this webinar. So we want to look at the brand experience in relation to social listening. So how can these listening insights really add value to every single customer touch point that you're working with right now? And then finally, social and care coming closer and closer together faster than we can even imagine. So we really want to understand today listening in the context of both marketing and care today. I think this is a huge topic that we've been exploring lately and really excited to hear what you guys think in the chat as well. So don't be afraid to ask questions, share your insights. We are not the only experts for sure on this call today. You guys are too. So I think it'll be a really good sharing experience.
Awesome. All right, so to start off, maybe a little poll question. Let us know in the chat kind of what's your need for social media listening. Do you have a huge FOMO? You don't want to miss out on any kind of conversations happening in your market around your brand? Or you want to know what the haters are complaining about? Or do you maybe want to get insights to create the next best marketing campaign ever? What are you using it for? So we have people saying a lot of C's, so creating marketing campaigns. Wow, overwhelmingly the use case here. Robert, maybe it'd be interesting to hear from you because you built this obviously with clients. What kind of challenges they are really trying to solve with this?
All right. So those challenges is nothing new. It's like not a new challenge appear in the world and now we have a new tool for that. This is more like a timeless business and marketing needs. And that's to first really understand what's happening around my brand. What is the chatter around my company or my products? So everything about business awareness. Once you know about your company, the second thing you want to know is how my competitors are doing. So here we are in the competitive analysis and some benchmarking. That's what listening is also used for. And once these two big main questions are answered, you want to learn more about some specific topics, which can be industry specific or country specific, what people talk about, the next championship in football versus my company, etc.
Yeah,
right.
I think it's interesting in the chat, Max, he said, C, wittiest campaign ever, but B, to avoid making the same mistakes over and over again. And I think that's an important one. If you guys want to switch over to panelists and attendees, we can all see your great responses too. We have someone saying as well, all of them. D. Not an answer on here, but totally, I think we feel that.
Yeah. Good question coming from James. Can we please define social media listening? Does anyone want to do it?
Yeah, so the main focus, okay, so what you're familiar with is to know about the chatter under your own profiles, everything which is under your control, everything which is related to owned, that's fine. But social listening opens the door to what's said behind your back, if you'd like to hear, or something which was not said directly under your profiles. So social listening is to collect information from any outlets, media outlets. It can be social media, it can be television, it can be radio broadcasting, anything where people are publicly expressing their opinion about anything. Yeah, so it's like big pool of information out there, and from this pool of information, you can slice and dice whatever you need. Answer any question regarding your campaign, or again how people perceive your brand. Is it ecologic enough? Yeah, nowadays. Or do people perceive you that you support equality enough, even though you try? Do they really perceive that? So there can be many cross checks you can do from this big pool of information in the world.
What I think is surprising, that Mantis, you brought up this chart, is it's such an important topic, yet the stats are saying that not everybody's kind of on board quite yet. Can you let us know what's going on here in the survey data here?
Yeah, I thought it was quite interesting, and I don't know what to make of the stat, whether it's a positive or a negative. It's sort of in the middle in terms of how many businesses were using listening tools to understand their audiences during the coronavirus pandemic, and I think it explains so much, like, why do you actually need tools like social media listening, especially in the times of shifting consumer behaviors, when you don't have that direct access into your audiences and you don't see what their needs are. I think listening becomes kind of the critical variable in order to help you understand them.
Exactly. And I feel like the coronavirus really just amplified to a lot of businesses so many different things and processes that they needed in place. But I think having a handle on what people are saying about you and your brand was arguably one of the most critical in these times to make sure that you're protecting and saving your brand over, these unknowns.
Yeah. And do you care to comment on what's the difference between listening and social intelligence? Portia is asking.
Yeah, sure. I can talk a little bit about that. So I think what's interesting about this distinction is social media listening is, as Robert so eloquently said, is just everything that's happening around your brand, from, who's mentioning it and what they're saying. But then social intelligence as well can include, social media analytics, performance metrics, and things like that. So you really need to have an incredible content intelligence machine set up that it includes social media listening. And it really depends on which part of marketing strategy you're building, that you can bring in analytics, you can bring in listening, you can bring in all these different pieces together to define a great sort of intelligence structure for your business.
Yeah. And so again, if we were to come back to the data, is that, I think listening was just crucial to understanding those changing consumer behaviors, and especially, digital channels becoming the crucial variable during this year. And why? Well, it's because we're constantly online. We're spending all our time, during working hours and during the commuting hours from bed to table, and in the evening as well. And it's all digital. So it's there's a lot of new data that's been added to our social media intelligence.
And I think not only just new data, but suddenly even new and super valuable data. That's what I like about what's coming, is suddenly everything's fair game. And what does that mean for your social media strategy?
Yeah, and now it's just a matter kind of figuring it out. Right. So, of course, because we're spending all our time online, consumer behaviors have changed, drastically, and it's to no surprise. And we can predict that by now. I think it's pretty certain that this is going to drag into 2021, and so a lot of these behaviors will be adopted for the long run. Anything else to add?
I think we're all pretty certain that 2020, our behaviors, as Mantis says, has changed so much. But what does that mean as you're planning your strategy? It's great to understand these trends, but it's also great to then, what can you action on based on these trends? And if your business isn't quite in the position to pull in that data and then organize it to make a decision. I think this is why we're here today, is really talking about, it's not just about having the data, but being productive with the data that you have.
Right. And just to kind of drive the point maybe home that the behaviors have really changed. And this is an interesting one that we found when we were looked at our Socialbakers data in our database, and is that even the times when we are online have actually shifted. So for instance, we know that we shifted almost an hour earlier our time on social media. And just curious, what's been your experience, Monica and Robert?
This says here, no nightlife. We're going to sleep earlier, waking up earlier. I'm not quite sure I even know what time is. So this chart is not maybe meant for me and people like me, but I can imagine that it can make sense. And from a marketer's perspective, you have to take that into account. Okay, if times are shifting with your audiences as well, and that's something you should be measuring, pull it down from the wider trends also to then your own profiles and your own audience. Has it shifted as well? And how can that impact your content visibility, what people are saying about you, what kind of reviews are coming in? So it really can change everything, just those small shifts in behavior.
Yeah. Robert, did your time when you wake up change?
Yes, I wake up later because I don't have to commute that much. And sometimes when there are some restrictions in the country, the kids even don't go to kindergarten. So we are at home. So we have like a nice family mornings. But the problem is more in the evening because you're used to spend all your day as if you're working with the computers in digital world, and then you continuously continue on social media and other outlets. So I saw that start expanding and growing in my daytime. So I had to put some restrictions there just to keep some good habits in place.
Right.
Yeah.
We have a question coming in asking about the data here. Is this global behavior shifting? Or I know, Mantis, you guys put together this report.
Yeah, so this data is available in our data trends report, where it talks about this shift in more granular detail, and we can drop the link to the report perhaps in the chat in a short while. But I believe that this is global data, so it will the source will be explained in the report.
Yeah, and besides that, when we were designing the listening from Socialbakers, we ran interviews from all our regions, from APAC, Middle East to US and Brazil. And there was like, if there was any common pattern, the one was that consumer behaviors really changed globally everywhere. That our clients started creating bigger digital footprint, and the clients wants to know more about it naturally.
Absolutely. What else do we have, Mantis? I'm so looking forward to 2020. When we check out the data for last year and looking at a few more trends, I would say 2020 is a little bit uncharted. I'm not quite sure if you guys agree. Maybe in the chat, how do you feel? Are you feeling like you got a handle on 2021, or a little bit more like us, like we can follow the trends, but we're ready to follow any sort of data or insights that come our way continuously?
I would say it pushes us more to the present moment. Any plan you make can change drastically. So really be on the beat of what's happening right now. That's, I would say, the best I can do to anticipate any changes, which will come.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, one significant thing that you already mentioned is that really the increase in digital touch points has been felt by every industry, and especially on our mobile devices as well, including desktop too, but especially mobile devices. And actually, almost the entire buyer's journey is covered through digital right now, from the brand research, the kind of brand discovery, to product research, to purchases, and even customer care, of course. Monica, something to add here?
Oh yeah, I'm just thinking about Black Friday and Cyber Monday. They weren't 2 days this year. They were like, I don't know, a week and a half, it sort of felt like. And we're all spending time on mobiles, scouring the best deals. Is this the right time? Or the deal's going to go lower? Are things changing? What reviews are coming in from, different even Black Friday shoppers that you're sort of shopping along with? So I think this was quite a momentous season for shopping, and this Christmas season as well is going to be, rife with data that we're going to want to analyze and understand how this product research is being done completely differently now than it ever was.
Right. And Robert, you again mentioned this, that if we kind of think of the digital space and the amount of touch points that every brand has to cover now, that has grown through the pandemic and immensely. And of course, it feels like almost like it presents an opportunity because you have more data to work with, but at the same time, it gives you a kind of a new challenge as to figuring out like what should you really be looking at, like what actually matters to you and what's within your control to improve, right?
Exactly. A lot of data, unstructured data, is like never-ending Excel sheet. You can read it, you can really answer any question. Yeah. So first step in this journey is to have access to the data. And social media brands are exposing their APIs. So there is legal way how to get an access to a lot of information that is shared. But once you have that information, what's next? You need to analyze it. You need to organize it in a way that it can be like, like that, I don't know how to call it in English, but you have that ball which you shakes and gives you the answer. And that's what actually the
magic 8 ball.
Yes, the mechanism behind listening is. We have the data, and with analytics tool, you can slice and dice and pick your view, your rabbit hole to answer like, what is the age profile of the people which didn't like the next campaign I published last time, or what is the biggest interest of the people who like me the most because of my green approach.
I want people to like me. Should I use social media listening for my personal brand? Yeah, I think it's such a great point. I love that magic 8 ball sort of metaphor. It's so important to consider that. What I like here about this slide too is that, and Robert points out, is that it's this give and take at every touch point. What information are you pulling in? And then what are you doing with that to improve the touch point experience for the next round of people, the next campaign? So what's cool is it's a constant iteration of your strategy. And we hope that if you can really hone in on the touch points that matter to you most, you'll gather the data for that and then really make those super, super strong for your audiences and give them an awesome experience.
Yeah. I sincerely hope that in 2021, we figure out like which data points do you really are relevant for you, as opposed to just looking at all the data and just collecting it and hoarding it, as opposed to really picking out what's going to make a difference, like a strategy difference.
Exactly. And I think this brings us perfectly to this really cool quote that we like to reference a lot, is this about this organized productive analysis that you're doing. Because, expectations are changing constantly, you have to tune into these very faint hints or these digital fingerprints to understand what your audiences are caring about, how they're feeling. And as Robert even mentioned, at this very moment, you need to have your finger on the pulse, because that pulse might be a little bit different a couple months from now. So you need to constantly recheck in, be continuous in your efforts to make sure you're, steering the way and changing it up if things aren't quite working for you.
Right. And just to set the stage for the rest of the webinar, so we want to look at the two different use cases for social media listening. And that's looking for how you can leverage it from a point of view of marketing team. So that's actually everyone who answered C. This is very much the part that we're going to answer. But also we want to speak about how it connects to the care part of the customer journey. And it is really a journey. Those aren't two separate use cases. They are connected, because it is the experience of the same customer that we're speaking about.
Mm-hmm.
So jumping ahead into the first section. All right, just to set the stage here. So we want to give you a couple of questions that social media listening can help you answer, and pair it up with a use case so that you can easily see how this was used in practice. So Monica, I'm going to let you do this here.
Thanks so much. Yeah, this is a super cool use case. So what can brands really learn from social media listening? We touched on it a lot already, but how aware people and even influencers are aware of your brand, trends, understanding audiences more granularly, understanding your product launches. This is especially important when we saw the data about people are doing product research online. So you want to make sure that you have a great understanding of what's happening out there once you go live. And then, of course, another golden nugget is this competitors angle. So what are they doing well and not so well? So I actually took an example of a beauty brand called Colourpop, and their first ever product collaboration with a beauty influencer, Raw Beauty Christie. So Colourpop is known for doing collaborations with influencers. It's sort of their thing. And what's kind of cool about this one, I think it's a very heartwarming story, is that this influencer had never collaborated with Colourpop, but she was a huge advocate. So usually it kind of flips influencer marketing on its head a little bit. It's like, okay, if someone is an influencer already and they're advocating for your brand just of their own volition, then you probably want to bring them into your, into your world and use their power for your own brand awareness. So if we go to the next slide, we can see that this is exactly what Colourpop did. So they noticed, because they're tuned in to what mentions are happening all across social media, they saw that every time this Raw Beauty Christie influencer did a review of Colourpop, her fans were super pushing for a product collaboration. And that's what you can see in this screenshot here of her launch video. She was posting every single time over the past couple of years when her fans were saying, Colourpop, do a collaboration with Christie. You have to get on this ASAP. And so they did. And what's kind of cool is it was released in November, and it sold out a majority of items in 24 hours. So this was really the perfect example of Colourpop not only listening to what's being said out there, but turning that into a huge financial opportunity and awareness opportunity for them as a brand. What do you guys think?
Well, for me, the really interesting it's an interesting use case, and it shows just that you need to be also not only kind of monitoring different brands and different media publishers and so forth, but you also need to be considering what is the pool of influencers that I should be looking at in order to draw insights from.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's kind of cool is then you get the added benefit, the compounding benefit of not only brand awareness on your own profiles. So Colourpop posted about the collection and they had amazing engagement. We can see here on the left that it was an A-graded post in terms of content quality. And then we can see that on the flip side, when the influencer Raw Beauty Christie posted about the collaboration on Instagram, it was her best performing post of 2020. Great for the influencer. Amazing.
Brilliant. Yeah.
So it's just like a win-win situation when you find an influencer who is also just happens to be an amazing advocate of your brand already.
Yeah, and the thing is, of course, sorry, Monica?
You wouldn't have been able to catch that if Colourpop was only, hyper focused on what's happening on their own profiles. They might have missed all the comments coming in on, Raw Beauty Christie's profiles. Yeah.
And the thing is also to be able to, the goal is to be able to spot it and turn it into something that's tangible. So it should be kind of a team time dedicated for this kind of work. And of course, those teams need to have a tool set that enables them to do this sort of easily, that they don't have to go and look through these Instagram profiles, but this is somehow sort of easily organized for them. So we want to maybe share a little bit how this is done at Socialbakers so that you can see it in practice. And also just to show that, it's a cosmetics brand. It's a pretty neat use case. And of course, not every industry is maybe so glamorous and easy to create content for, but it's really relevant nowadays because the digital, audiences are really, every industry, they are now on digital channels. So it is going to be relevant no matter where you're really working. And so I'm just quickly going to jump screens, if you don't mind.
Mandis, are you saying that Socialbakers software is not a glamorous industry to post content for?
I did not say that. No, the Socialbakers product is pretty glamorous. You'll see it in a second. Okay, so actually, Robert, we're going to have to kind of use your assistance here a little bit to walk us through what we're looking at in the listening section.
Okay, so we are deep in the tool now in our suite, and you can see the new listening module. And in this window, you can pick your listening queries for further analysis. So we already prepared the listening query. Listening query is nothing else than your definition of what kind of mentions, keywords, hashtags, direct, indirect mentions, and what channels and countries you'd like to be collecting. Yeah. So this is like a little formula which collects all kinds of mentions in the world. And here in this search bar, we pick Socialbakers Engage query. This is what this query we created because we wanted to know what's being told about our super event we had last month, understand it from different perspectives. So each listening journey starts with defining your query. And then when we're going to analyze it, we just select that query. And now we have a couple of options, what we can do with such a query. What you can see is listening views. Each of the listening view try to answer one of the essential questions. What are those what is the volume of the mentions behind your brand? Which channels are more popular than another? What's the sentiment about? What are the key topics? Key topics that's AI, which we run on top of just the data to really analyze the text and categorize it in, hey, this is more about the sport, this is more about the automotive, even though it's not mentioned directly. And then more, you can, with the last view, you can learn more about the audience, all kind of demographics.
Exactly. So if you guys, go for it, Robert.
Yeah, the first view is called aggregated. That's the most popular because here we have the cream of all other views. Yeah, that is your just like general dashboard where you see all the basic metrics. But if you want to drill down, for instance, in audience, you can switch and see much more metrics. So what we can see here is all essential things you need to know when you are analyzing your listening mentions. Yeah. So first is number of authors. What is the population like? Number of the mentions, then what is that evolution of mentions at the time that helps you to identify where was the peak or where was anti-peak somewhere.
Right. Just to maybe give audience a bit of context. So why is this? So Socialbakers Engage was a pretty exciting thing for us in the sense that we, had like 8,000 people register for the event, and a lot of influencers were also speaking in the event. So we were really trying to monitor the social media space to understand like who's saying what, like how much extra exposure are we getting from this event that we didn't plan. So this really helped us do this, and this is what Robert is explaining. It shows us the scale of what we were able to achieve.
Exactly. And if you attended our Engage event and we're, tweeting or posting images from your home, we hope to catch that too. So that's one of the things to see is, exactly. What can we learn from you? What did you feel about the event? How can we improve the event for next year? What were the most popular talks? What were the least popular talks? And what were the themes? And what were people saying? And my favorite is, what emojis were people using? I think this is a cute one too. Is your event more formal? Are people using some flirtier emojis? So you can learn not just about your audiences and what they're talking about, but their deep inner emotions too. Robert, you described emojis in a really cute way from a listening perspective.
Okay, no, I forgot what was it, but anyhow, emojis is a new sign language of nowadays, and it's beautiful how universal it is in the globe. Because you can be filtering the content per language, like English, French, whatever, but emojis really transmit much more information. There is some kind of like emotional background to it and cultural aspects related to that. We say that one picture is worth more than 1,000 words.
Exactly.
So with these emojis, you can get another kind of hard to explain sense of what's going on related to your brand. And I see that one of the biggest emojis are with the love and with the stars and computer. So I think we are on a good path in social bakers. Making people happy through technology. That's what I take from that.
Exactly. But whoever's making the winky face, I want to know exactly, what talks they went to and what they're thinking about that.
Yes, but what's great about this analytic view is that you can click on anything you can see here. For instance, any particular emoji or any particular keyword or a drop or peak in sentiment. Mm-hmm. And when you click, what will happen is...
You want me to click on one of these?
Or no,
Yes.
going to one of the charts too, or the peak chart, right? This will answer Caitlin George's questions about diving deeper into the negative sentiment, diving deeper into the posts behind the data, and really showing that interplay or that marriage between data and creative.
Right.
So all clickable charts.
You can pick anything, but something which has more mentions that will be
Sure.
more representative.
Just before we leave this page, can I just kind of show something else on here, which I thought was really
Yeah,
cool
sure.
and useful? I really like this advocates and influencer section where you can see like which influencers mentioned us the most. So you have Mari Smith here and Brian Solis, which
Exactly. Okay. So for the table, I can expand a little bit. The story Monica explained before can be shortened by looking at this table, where you have all authors mentioning you, sorted by interactions they produced or amount of mentions. So here you can check on the right side, who are your advocates? On the left side, who are your influencers? Okay?
Yeah, I think that's much easier for Colourpop and Raw Beauty Christie to discover each other much faster and get stuff done and, do some amazing product collaborations in the future.
So here you go, Mari Smith. I would definitely give her a call.
Okay, so this kind of more granular views is also, I think, what Robert you're saying is really useful. So for instance, if I want to see the number of mentions on peak day, let's say, and what were those mentions, so I simply kind of click and I have a view of what was said right on that day.
Yes, so in this view you see the whole list of the mentions filtered per particular emoji or key topic or channel or sentiment, or now is amount of mentions. And by scrolling down or sorting it by interactions, etc., you can get a sense like what was behind this sudden peak. Okay?
Right.
And if you like any particular mention, you can tag it, you can assign it to your teams, add a label, add to collections for inspiration or for follow-up later on. So this is a nice showcase how this new listening is integrated in already familiar environment of Socialbakers, if you are a user of Socialbakers.
All right. Before we run out of time, I'm going to jump back into the deck, and of course, everyone is free to try these tools and speak to our sales reps and to see how they would work for your business. But still, just to cover a little bit of, we still have the other part to cover, so I'm going to jump back into it. And let me know if there are any questions. I think there were that maybe we should answer at this point.
Yeah, I think we can move on, but there was a question about, of course, seeing how the query builder is set up. So I think that's something we can revisit when we're back in the platform, because it's important to show that it is made for marketers and you don't have to be a super technical person to build a query that makes sense for you and your business objectives.
Yeah. Before we move to the care part of the customer journey and how you can use listening there, just one still important use case that's really underutilized, and that's the using listening for competitive intelligence. Not enough people maybe really using that yet, and there's a lot that you could be missing out as a marketer if you're not leveraging that. Surprising number for me personally.
Yeah, I mean, 8%, I think that's going to be a completely different experience maybe when we're having this webinar of December of 2021. Then we can see that, people did realize how much they could learn from their competitors. Either it's taking their lead and, sort of co-creating best practices for your industry in a time where there aren't as many, or seeing maybe what's not landing with the audiences there, and then maybe backpedaling on your strategy as well. So there's so many great use cases to having your understanding how people are talking about your competitors, for sure.
Yeah. For each of these sections, we created a short takeaway slide so that you can, I guess, you can return to this and kind of go through it and check if you are, doing these tasks. Monica, do you want to quickly run through them?
Yes, I will. And of course, we have this deck available for you after the session, so you can bring these questions to your team and really talk through it during your great brainstorming sessions. But it's definitely considering what channels you should be tracking and why. Where are you really keyed in, and where do you need a little bit more insight into your audiences, what they're feeling about what they're talking about. This was the biggest takeaway, I think, from Robert, is how is your information organized and shared? If you have access to data, cool. but there's one step further that you really have to go to make sure that you can take the next best action. And of course, how do you make it actionable? It's by having this data organized and then being able to say, okay, I see, for example, my advocates, I should probably contact them or bring their user-generated content into my strategy. So being keyed into what's happening and then what you're going to do about it is really that perfect, I think, sweet spot.
Sweet. And before we jump to the next section, just a reminder to everyone participating in the chat to change when you're responding to questions to all panelists and attendees. And that includes you, Robert. I see you crafted a careful response. So just switch it to so that all attendees can see it. All right. Now, the other part of the story, and that's the community care. There's something important that has happened over the last couple of years, and I think, Monica, you hinted at that in the beginning of the webinar, is that really a lot of customer care has shifted to social media as opposed to maybe phone or emails, and the expectation from consumers is pretty high for brands to be very responsive on those channels. They really expect,
absolutely,
almost near instant responses. But it's a little bit tough for businesses to get to that. I think it's just a couple of old practices in place that are holding us back. To set a bit of context here. So why am I saying this? Well, if we look at the way that our teams, marketing and care teams, have been set up in organizations previously, it's they always kind of operated in a bit of a silo, and for a good reason. I mean, the channels that you were using to conduct your care operations were slightly different from the channels that you were using to conduct your marketing operations. And, even up into the 2000s, we were really like using, SMS and phones to do all the care, kind of customer care tasks, and then really doing your campaigns on TV or web for marketing tasks. And that has totally changed in the past couple of years. And of course, in 2021 or in the next decade, it's really going to be defined by this kind of very user-centric approach to these both business functions. They're all going to happen on the same channels, and that's social media. And everything from the beginning of the customer journey, when you're discovering the brand, to when you purchase the product, to when you sometimes return it, can happen on Messenger or something, let's say. Anything to add, guys, here?
What I think is really interesting for me, and I think all of us, we both sit on both sides, right? So we are these consumers messaging brands, and we also are working in these industries. But I like to see that consumers, they saw an inefficiency in the way that things were set up in the business. And, we're like, if we're all on social media and you're on social media, I should be able to do whatever I want, whether it's interacting with your marketing team or your care team. Since you are there and I am there, let's just make things efficient. Let's reduce the effort it takes for us to really connect and talk to each other. And businesses who can hop on that early and transform the way that their teams are set up, their care teams and their marketing teams, they're going to be much more successful because they've tuned into the expectations of their consumers much more quickly. And that's what we hope social media listening, when that's sort of more sort of regular practice, that should happen to more and more brands, and customers will be, I think, happier and happier.
Yeah. So what can I see is that the traditional borders are disappearing. In the past, you had a phone number, you had to call and wait from 9 to 5 for being able to talk to agent. Yeah. Now you are more and more able to initiate anything you want through Facebook Messenger. Yeah? And maybe in the recent news you saw that WhatsApp will allow you to buy online pretty soon in cooperation with Facebook. So we cannot have on one side this borderless behavior of the clients, and on the other side the business tools which works in silos, that hey, we are marketing team and we are sales and we are this. So our tool also needs to make it easy to route whatever request comes from whatever channel to appropriate team. And speaking for the listening, because I'm not here for the whole tool, but listening is a part of our bigger suite. But one thing which helps us really to route any insight, any learning from the clients is labeling. So whenever comes very important mention in the listening, you can label it and, hey, this is important for sales because this talks about some opportunity for upsell. Yeah? And hey, this is very good for engagement team because we can create some interesting conversation. Or hey, this is for support team, there is some complaint. Yeah, so that in that way you are more efficient and decrease the time to solve the problem of the client. And in the eyes of clients, you are the one who really listens to whatever needs they come, and you are able to solve it in a very, very short time. So that's the power of labeling in listening and Socialbakers.
Yeah, and as Robert mentioned, basically, it's helping our clients be empowered to sort of face these 24/7 expectations. And I wanted to speak about Daily Burns, super cool client from the US, and really they're a fitness app. So of course, over the past year, many people have flocked to their channels to make sure that they're part of this wider fitness community. You know, if their gyms are closed or if they can't attend their regular classes, how can they really still build a fitness community? And Daily Burn allows them to do that. But as they've seen on their sort of social media channels, their users are expecting to be able to get in touch via any channel at any time. It's almost as if they're using everything as a live chat with an agent. So they do expect this fast response. And what Daily Burn has been able to do, because they've centralized all this communication, is sort of answer everything like boom, 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 to maintain this fast response time, even when this crazy increase in comments coming in. And that's all about being efficient and understanding this is not a separate story now for marketers or for customer cares. It's all blended, and how can you use that blending as an opportunity to keep your customers satisfied no matter the hour.
Sorry, I was muted. Just really quickly, I also have a tab open to just show what that looks like in Suite when you're actually doing this.
And of course, as you're opening this, a huge shout out to all community managers who are managing this time and understanding what that spike looks like, and the fear and panic that may be in your eyes if you aren't well equipped to manage the breakneck pace that the customers are expecting. We feel for you, and we're here for you.
Yeah. So walk us through what we're looking here, either Robert or Monica. So this is kind of what the community feed in Socialbakers looks like, and here's how it helps prioritize listening, right?
Yeah, I can start, and then Robert, we of course want your expertise here, but we are in our community management module, and you can really set it up however you'd like as a community manager. It's about supporting your productivity, not, making you work like somebody else does. But we have the inbox of everything that's coming in on your social channels. But we've also decided to pull out a listening feed for listening specific content. So you've set up your query, and Mantis, you've done a great job of filtering this feed by listening and your specific listening queries that maybe you are responsible for as a community manager. So this is our travel account, and you can see this is just an example of a travel brand. They have a lot to deal with lately, and you want to catch not only the customer issues that may be coming directly on your page, but maybe people are having conversations about your brand, as Robert rightly said, behind your back, basically. And you want to make sure, especially in difficult times when people are feeling that stress and, gossiping with their friends or gossiping in their reviews sites, that you can catch that and rectify any issues before they become actually damaging to your brand. So having this all centralized, your incoming communication and your listening content, I think is a huge win for brands who need to keep up.
Yeah, and of course, I think the core point here is that it's really all kind of has to happen in the same space, because as long as you kind of add this task of, if your community manager needs to go somewhere separately in order to find these kind of mentions of, your brand, it's just not going to be a very efficient process, obviously.
Exactly. Robert made a great point recently when he was talking about it's also from your community management, you can be labeling things, tagging things. So it's a great opportunity to do the hard work, but it's also another analysis opportunity. Robert, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yes. So listening traditionally we can break into two big groups. One is analytical. That's what we saw before. That's very good for market analysis, slicing and dicing, and trying to answer any niche question. But the second one is to really be on the beat of what's happening right now regarding any topic you want. For instance, in the competitor area, or you just launched a product and you're not sure what's the response from the public regarding that. So you just define a couple of keywords, and you see every second somebody mention your product live. And to make it even more powerful, this week we are launching a new option to filter all these listening mentions by the sentiment. So if something negative happens in the world related to your brand, you know about it right away. And it's up to you how you want to react. Some teams are allowed to respond to the public post. Some teams are passing it to another team for follow-up, or they are triaging it through the labels to the other one. Exactly. But this is like the second big aspect of the listening, to know what's happening at the very moment. Yeah? And this is already like going in the direction of crisis management. So there are coming new features in the listening Socialbakers pretty soon, and that's to set up alerts whenever somebody mentions something specific. It can be, this famous example of nail in the food. If you're a restaurant or anything else, you really want to make sure you know about as it happens, or something very positive. Something which again praise you or highlights any new product you are releasing. Exactly. Or sometimes you want to know about if a volume of negative conversation went through some unexpected threshold. Yeah. So
we had a question in the Q&A, Robert, and I think you can just kind of expand on this a little bit. It's from Max, and he's saying, so what metrics do you look at when using social media? I think you mentioned sentiment, volume, mentions, but what are some other key metrics that are really going to be good for the marketing analytics use case and then the crisis management use case?
This depends always on your objective. What do you want to try to solve? Yeah, but very basic is that volume. What's the chatter around? What's the share of voice between you and other competitors, or share of voice between your own products? Where people where they talk more about this product or this product. Then you have metrics around the sentiment, positive or negative, and how it evolves in time. Then you have metrics about the reach or potential impressions. What is that echo you create, in potential echo you create in the world, and how it changes over the time? Are you improving it, or it's declining and you should take an action? Yeah. Etc. Like each important metric is in this aggregated view. Yeah. So if you have a chance to go through this aggregated view, book a demo with us, and we can show you all important metrics which we are able to give you access to.
Kind of a follow-up question from Max as well is, so if you are looking at trends by industry, how would you want to maybe set up your queries per industry? Or for example, Mantis, how are we doing it being in, B2B? It's a little bit of a different monitoring process or listening process than B2C. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so for us, what's important is that is to track kind of what our marketing personas are interested in, at least. So we have our kind of marketing personas defined, by the way, also by the Socialbakers tool. And then based on those personas and their affinities, we can identify the kind of pages they're usually kind of following. And based on that, we can start tracking the conversations happening on those particular pages. And the queries would be set up based on the interests, based on the topics that the personas are interested in.
Exactly. I think it's such a great point. We had a webinar a couple of weeks ago where we really dove into social media listening to understand your audiences and doing definite deep dive into audience demographics and audience personas and interests. And I think the main takeaway there was for sure is that interests play a huge role in the content you're creating. And so really balancing that understanding of listening metrics with understanding of your personas and their interests, wants, needs, it's going to be an amazing combination for your marketing strategy in 2021.
Yeah, and there's also questions being asked about the share of voice and whatnot, and that's again it comes down to tracking all your competitors, and usually the audiences will be sort of similar, and so the topic queries will be similar in that regard as well. And so you'll be able to see the share of voice through engagement in that way, or number of kind of mentions of those queries.
Exactly. And beyond the aggregated overview, it's also good to, as we talked about, not just looking at your competitors, but being in comparison with your competitors as well. So seeing the comparison of a share of voice, and then deciding, what to do about it, whether you are in marketing, whether you're in PR, even, of course, much closer related metric for them. So as Robert mentioned, what are your use cases? What are you trying to solve, and what actions you're trying to take? And then you'll be able to build your sort of metric set that's important to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Before we get back from here, is there something to be mentioned about the community section?
I think there's a few cool things here that I definitely want to show. It's just all about making sure that you are providing an awesome experience externally. And the only way you can do that is to be really super tight with your internal operations. What I like here about our community is the instant labeling function, so that you can create reports on your agents, reports on, complaints that are coming in, common sort of patterns that are coming in. Assignments, of course, adding obviously labels and notes. You can even see in our community here, we see on the direct messages, JD is currently replying. So that's also to make sure that your agents aren't working on the same messages at the same time, because that's a waste of time and also super confusing. So it's about making the experience for your agents pleasant. So one, they come to work feeling good and okay about things, and two is so that your external appearance is that much smoother.
Yeah. There's a lot of sort of good technical questions coming in, what would be the best way to estimate the amount of mentions per month you need? Robert, what's the best way for our clients to estimate that?
That's something we are actively trying to figure out. Yeah, because the situation is changing. We don't have any steady trend of whatsoever. And there are also new events happening every month, positive, negative, expected, unexpected. So this is really moving with all that pool of dimensions. So the best way is to be collecting it for some time for a particular topic, and then you can think about some trend, and then you can be again surprised about some boost. Yeah, so it's always like a really open question for marketeers, like how much is it being told about me in the world? Yeah, for these particular handles or hashtags in connection to my brand.
Exactly. I'm wondering if we could do some sort of also industry analysis on that case and see what's happening, with the peaks and troughs in terms of, even this year, airlines or hotels, things like that. That would be an interesting understanding. If I'm not sure, I'm not the data analyst in this group, but I wonder if we could sort of some estimations there.
I was thinking for the next webinar for listening, we'll come with some industry insights, some secrets that we could figure it
out. Monica, to conclude on the care section, so what some of the questions should our audience be thinking about?
Yeah, I think we answered these quite nicely in terms of, is your system set up, whatever system you have? It could be a system, it could be a process rather than a system right now, but can you prioritize the tasks? Can you understand when you should be responding to something super angry ahead of, praise? So what is that balance of prioritization of your tasks? The other question is, are you only responsive, or are you listening to improve your strategy? This is a great opportunity, again, to bring care and marketing closer and closer together, not just because it serves your smooth handover of tasks, but it serves each other and your teams so much better. It's because there's this really interesting voice of customer idea of, are you listening what people are saying and applying that into every phase of the customer journey? Or are you just hoarding that insight for, your own team and your own processes? We all got to share. Sharing is caring here. And what can you learn? Are the insights you gain shared with these other teams? So maybe you think you're doing a good job communicating with each other, but maybe check in on that and seeing what's lost in translation, lost along the way, because there are so many great opportunities in data if you have access and contextual access to the data that you're looking at.
Yeah, and there's a big difference between let's say you kind of taking a screenshot of something in product and then sending it from the care team to the marketing team, like, hey, look, they said this about us, it's kind of funny. Like, can you do something with that? And then it's usually kind of disappears. But if it's happening all in the platform and the person is kind of assigned to it, and you build a routine and methodology of working around that, then it can really become a part of your strategy.
Exactly, because with routine comes, regularity, and with regularity, you can start spotting patterns. As Robert's saying, we're not quite sure with the, understanding mentions, but if we start regularly checking in and continuously checking in on our insights, then you can start having a historical context, a competitive context, which is much more meaningful than a one-off activation based on one post.
Yeah. So before we dive back into the questions, because there's quite a few. So just to reiterate, like it's what Monica, a lot of what you just said it, but again, you need to think of why you're listening and what kind of part of the customer journey are you listening into, because your goals and what you're looking for will be different in those different stages. And also the data that you draw from there is going to be slightly different. So, and of course, this deck will be shared with you, and you'll be able to go back and check for those specific parts of what you should be asking yourself. But I want to jump, if we have a couple of minutes, into the Q&A with the audience. By the way, you'll be able, when you get the deck, to download the entire listening study, where you'll get more insights about listening. And now, jumping ahead into the Q&A. First question.
I see Robert's been answering some, but let's answer it to the wider group, because maybe they've sort of gotten lost. So one of the questions was about how the AI works with identifying and assigning sentiment on mentions.
How AI works?
No, I was saying it was an answer to Matt's question about how the AI is identifying and assigning sentiment. So how does that work with our listening combination here? Is it on particular mentions? Is it on query sets? How does that work?
Okay, so AI is our home secret sauce, our proprietary code, which analyzes the text, any text which is collected through listening. Yeah, we call it mentions and the results of the listening. So if you want to know about every conversation which consists the keyword airplane, all these conversations are downloaded, and then we run AI on top of that, and AI tries to understand from the context of the sentence, is it like positive thing or negative thing? Are the people like complaining, they're using some words which are negative, or is it actually something good? And then this AI will mark the post in our system. Hey, this is a positive post. How this is a negative post, and then you're able to apply the filter. Yeah, but one more step. If you don't trust computers that much, you can review this sentiment afterwards. And if you think that this is actually a positive sentiment, it's not neutral, you can correct it. Yeah, because AI, you cannot compete with real humans. We are like 80% efficient with that. So there's always a little gap, but our listening allows you to update that sentiment as you find appropriate afterwards.
Right, but Robert, if you put 10 people in a room, would you think all 10 people would agree on the sentiment of a post? I think that's a pretty heavy ask of humans as well.
We can have a webinar about sentiment. There's a lot of controversy there, and but overall, we got a positive sentiment from our clients on our sentiment analysis.
Good work. And the other question that came in from Mary was about identifying the difference between an influencer and an advocate. If you could just respond so that the rest of the participants.
Influence is like a boring one. We just look at the count of the followers. But we know everything about micro-influencers, that sometimes they can make a bigger impact. Yeah. So looking at the biggest amount of followers is like some information, but some companies find more insightful to know who of the authors talks the most about me, who posted the most of the mentions, and what is that interactions on top of those mentions. And you can find that posts from the influencer got less interaction that from somebody else, and you can discover some future collaboration within the pool of the authors. And that works also reverse. You can also find detractor. You just filter by sentiment on top of your query, and you see who is causing the most negative sentiment in your
Do we need
query.
to send them some coupons or a free voucher because they just need to quiet down?
Or warning letter. You never know. Depends on industry.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness. Thanks so much. And I don't know if there's some other questions, Mantis, that you wanted to cover here from the Q&A.
I do. Just a quick one. If Robert, you may answer this. Do these features work in Spanish? Are they available in other languages?
Es complicado. No. The honest answer is we've got some language mutations. So you should find it also convenient for Spanish speaking people. We also improve the sentiment for Spanish language because each language has a different. You need to take a different approach to analyze sentiments. So last month we released. We have in total around 100 languages now. Yeah, Spanish, given is one of the most global ones, has a pretty good coverage. So yes, you should understand the Spanish queries and understand what the Spanish-speaking people think about you to have a listening tool.
All right. I'm not going to let us go too much over time. So I just want to thank everyone in the audience for participating and asking so many questions about this. But of course, the conversation doesn't need to end here. So connect with us on LinkedIn and, write on us on our any social media platform you're using. Write to us there. Find some way to get in touch with us, and we'll be able to connect you to an expert who can walk you through listening and kind of your business use case and be more concrete in that regard. And I want to thank as well Monica and Robert for having this conversation with me.
Of course, it's always happy to chat through these topics with you. Let's get ready for 2021, everybody.
Yeah.
Yay.
Thanks so much. Have a good one.
Take care, everyone. See you again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.